Since Destiny 1, the lore and story have been the most integral part of the game and of the world for the players to explore and connect with. Destiny 2 has effectively removed lore from the game, making it only accessible through third-party websites or by replaying the entire game and noting down or recording the nuggets of lore that are given through scannable objects. Some might say that the lore is finally in the game. And why am I saying that it isn't? Because no Grimoire cards, and it's not recorded in the book. Although they have actually added dialogue that describes and explains the events, there's no way of keeping that information in-game. This could cause a huge lore fans to have to replay missions just to get the information right and connect the dots of the lore and story. When you finally do get to find a coherent narrative to the lore, it begins to conflict with things that happened in Destiny 1. There are two huge plot holes and conflicting lore points that I can't get over. The Cabal knowing what the light is and what the Traveler is, and the Iron Lord storyline from Rise of Iron. When we first learn about the Cabal, we find out that they know nothing of the light and have never heard of the Traveler. They simply are a warmongering army to take over planets and militarize them for the good of the Empire. For this exact reason, they crash one of their ships into the Dreadnought when it shows up near Saturn. They do this in hopes of retrieving intel on how to fight and defeat the light. When I first heard about Destiny 2 being about the Cabal and their invasion and attack on the city, I thought it would be because of the distress signal sent out from the Cabal ship that crashed into the Dreadnought. Needless to say, it wasn't. Instead, they create the biggest continuity error that I have ever seen. Destiny 2 presents the Red Legion as a faction of the Cabal Empire that has been hunting down the Traveler by tracking down the planets and systems it has visited. Not only do they know of the Traveler's existence, but Gaul states that he is able to not only stop the connection between the Traveler and the Guardians, but he's also able to harness the light and use it.
I am Gaul, and your light is mine.
This goes completely against everything said in Destiny 1. How can they know of the Traveler's existence and simultaneously not know anything about it? Bungie could have easily said the distress signal contained information about the light. Upon receiving this information, Gaul and his Red Legion were sent by the Emperor to learn more about the light and to find a way to weaponize it. This would have launched Gaul's campaign to search for the light, study planets and systems touched by the light, ultimately leading him to Earth, where he would lay siege to the last city. This would fix continuity errors currently in the story, but Bungie's writers either looked over this big detail in the lore, or simply don't give a shit about the lore. This brings me into the Iron Lords and how they've fucked up the whole Rise of Iron story. With the recent addition of Iron Banner, and at the time that I was writing this script, it was the first Iron Banner, and currently we've gone through several Iron Banners. I couldn't help but notice that Lord Saladin was the one receiving us, and he seemed to have forgotten who we are. For returning Guardians who have played through Destiny, Rise of Iron, you may remember that we were branded Iron Lords. Even Shaxx acknowledges that we are Saladin's young wolf.
Saladin's young wolf. My armory is opened.
This all happens within the first mission of Destiny 2. During Rise of Iron, Lady Aphrodite was the one who hosted Iron Banner while Lord Saladin handled re-establishing the Iron Lords with our help. But now, in Destiny 2, we as Guardians are supposed to overlook that fact that Lady Aphrodite is gone and Lord Saladbar doesn't remember who we are. This small but very annoying detail could have been fixed by simply giving Saladin some dialogue when you talk to him during Iron Banner. While you turn in tokens, he can mention how the temple was attacked as well, or how it wasn't attacked, and instead of staying there to re-establish the order, he mobilized his forces in defense of the city. Depending on each outcome, Lady Aphrodite would have her own story. If the temple was attacked, Saladin would mention how Aphrodite fell in defense of the civilians who were evacuating, or how she helped evacuate civilians and brought them to a pacifist colony that she was originally part of before returning to Lord Saladin during Rise of Iron. If the temple wasn't attacked, then we would learn that Lady Aphrodite left to rejoin her people and see if they were attacked by the Red Legion. Something like this could have been added through dialogue given by Saladin. Instead, Bungie threw in Saladin and his Iron Banner for no reason but to say, "Hey look, Iron Banner's back!" This also leads to another question. If the temple was attacked and the Red Legion controlled Fellwinter's Peak, at what fucking point did Shaxx clear out the mountain for us to use it as a Crucible map? Referencing the Vostok map, think about it. I would think that being Guardians that we were, as powerful as we are, being the chosen ones who were gifted by the Traveler's Shard with the light again, Shaxx would enlist our aid in clearing Fellwinter's Peak alongside Lord Saladin, since the temple is his responsibility. If Fellwinter's Peak never fell and they didn't have to evacuate the temple, then why didn't we, Saladin's young wolf, make our way to Fellwinter's Peak and meet Saladin compared to the farm? Fellwinter's Peak is a more defensible location due to the geography and the fucking weather there. It's fucking harsh. Believe me, I live in Canada. Instead, we're treated to a new location that becomes totally irrelevant the minute you finish the plot hole-filled story. As for the story, there's not much that I can say. It's very linear with a strong introduction to everyone that will play a part in the story. Unfortunately, not even 2 missions in, we are shown that Bungie couldn't be fucked to write an interesting story. As of the 3rd mission, we gain back our light, putting us back to the same point that we left off at the beginning. Bungie could have fixed this with a simple change in the storyline. Give us our light later in the story. Let's look at the story development if we had gained our light back halfway through the game. Every event would still take place. We help Hawthorne with the evacuation and smuggling goods. This is where the story would deviate from what Bungie thought up. Before we hear Commander Zavala's message, we sense the light and are drawn to this darkness-filled area of the EDZ, hoping to find the source of this light. That is when we find the Traveler's Shard. The Shard would not give us our light. Instead, it would empower us and give us more strength. We would now be able to double jump, shade step, rift, barriers, and the base grenade with no energy or light attached. Basic grenades from like from our modern era or the Golden Age. Then later we find out that Io contains pure light from the Traveler. The Red Legion has even traveled to Io in hopes to harness this pure energy. During our mission given by Ikora, we can have an encounter with some Taken, and as we are about to be overwhelmed and die at the hands of the Taken, we feel a surge of power. It breaks out as the Red Legion successfully drills into a well of pure light energy. The surge causes us to gain our strength back, as well as weakening the Taken. We escape and make our way to the drill site, where we begin to absorb the Traveler's pure energy. This could allow us to gain back our super abilities. This would be when we would get the Arcstrider, Sentinel, and Dawnblade. These subclasses are a primal version of our original subclasses. That's why we don't have Blade Dancer, Defender, and Sunsinger. The pure energy caused a modification to our subclasses, so we end up with those 3. Upon receiving our subclasses, we make our way back to Ikora. We show her that the light is still present on Io, allowing her to regain her confidence. This will motivate her to go back and join Zavala and Cayde. The retaking of the city would happen almost identical to the campaign, but instead of our Vanguard leaders quitting on us and making us fight Gaul on our own, they would join us on his command ship for one final stand with all other Guardians. 3 fire teams containing 6 Guardians in each fire team would enter the Cabal command ship, each with an objective. Ikora would lead one team, consisting mainly of Warlocks and 1 or 2 Titans for defensive purposes, to disable the ship and gain any intelligence about the Red Legion's current strength in the system. Zavala's fire team, mainly consisting of Titans, would create a distraction aboard the ship, causing the Cabal to go into the state of alert, locking down certain areas of the ship to protect themselves. Last but not least, Cade and his fire team. This would consist mostly of Hunters and Titans. They infiltrate Ghaul's chambers via service ducts and ventilation shafts, after Zavala causes the lockdown, forcing Ghaul to stay in his chambers. As we traverse the depths of the ship after teleporting into it, with the help of Cade's Vex teleporter, we notice that we are traveling in circles. A door opens allowing us to go through it. With no knowledge of where we are in the ship, because our ghosts are busy hiding as not to get caught in any crossfire that may occur, large bright lights illuminate each fire team. They somehow ended up in the same place as one another. All the Guardians are confused. Commander Zavala knew exactly what just happened. It was a trap. They were lured into the main hangar of the ship. The Cabal leader, Ghaul, chuckles at the spite of these pitiful Guardians, knowing all too well that they do not possess the light required to defeat him. The hangar doors open, allowing the natural light of the burning city to illuminate the enemy. The Guardians are surrounded. Phalanx has set up their shields around the Guardians with legionaries just behind, taking aim at the Guardians. Scions setting their snipers against their shoulders, waiting for their commander's order to open fire. Ghaul has himself protected with 4 of his best guards and 2 Colossus. Just under 100 Cabal altogether in the hangar to crush the Guardian insurgents group. There's no hope for the Guardians. Zavala quickly takes control of the situation, ordering his Titans to summon their barriers in hopes that they can take some of the impact of the initial Cabal volley. Ikora looks to her fellow warlocks. They drop healing rifts. Cade picks up the Colonel to protect his new friend, and immediately disappears to do his own thing. Some might say he was trying to get into a sniping position, but others just think he went off to try and kill Ghaul on his own. The Titans take the initial volley and push back with grenades of their own, taking down one side of the barrier. They punch a hole through the Cabal forces, causing them to disperse. The Vanguard's last stand has begun. After 90 seconds, a quarter of the Cabal forces have fallen, but the Vanguard have lost almost half of their Guardians. The Ghosts only being able to heal the damage taken, and not being able to resurrect, put the Guardians in a terrible position. We look to the commander and request that we take point on the assault, charging through the enemies using our light. The Cabal stand little to no chance. Zavala watches our 6 as we move in on Ghaul's position. Out of the corner of our eye, though, we spot movement. It's Cade. He's moving along the shadows, closing in on Ghaul. We create a distraction for his elite guards, moving them away from the commander. Cade is nowhere to be seen now. He must have hidden his presence to ambush Ghaul. But Ghaul is no longer in the same place either. Ikora calls out to us, pointing out where Ghaul is. He's holding Cade. Zavala starts charging through Cabal, trying to reach Cade, but it's too late. Ghaul holds up Cade by the chest, using only one arm. In one swift motion, he crushes Cade and flings his lifeless body towards Zavala, colliding with the Vanguard commander mid-sprint. Our Guardian can't stop. We're the only ones who can stop this tyrant. We charge through the enemy's position. A low rumble can be felt through the ship, as if there was a low-magnitude earthquake. Our Guardian stops. We look back at the commander. Cade's corpse in his arms. A tear rolling down his cheek. Zavala's lost so many Guardians with this assault. Now he's lost his brother as well. A spark of energy can be seen flickering in his fist. The commander lights up with arc energy. He leaps several meters into the air, and with that same energy comes crashing back down with such fury that the entire ship nearly drops out of the sky. Dozens upon dozens of Cabal dead. Only a crater is left to show for his actions. We make it to Ghaul and wait for the commander before engaging. Still in his Fist of Havoc, Zavala charges through half a dozen Cabal Centurions, saving a handful of Guardians in the process. The commander is only a couple meters away, for Ghaul activates an energy barrier, separating the commander from us. Nothing can be done to bring down the barrier. The final fight between Guardian and Cabal begins.